Welcome back, everybody, to ND and Free, the podcast, a podcast and media platform that explores how NDers can live their truth and feel free in their lives. We hear from inspiring coaches, therapists, experts, and fellow NDers from all over the world. My name's Owen Morgan, a wellbeing coach, soon to be ADHD coach, and a speaker. I have over 10 years experience in the wellbeing sector and have interviewed over 500 people across 4 podcasts. I received my ADHD diagnosis at 41 and it changed my life. My mission is to explore how the human spirit and understanding our whole self can bring us a life full of possibilities. Now, today's the first, guys. I brought someone on that's been on many iterations of my wellbeing journey, many TV chat shows and speaking events, an absolute legend who is called Darren Clark. Darren Clark is an award-winning entrepreneur, international keynote speaker, and passionate advocate for dyslexia and neurodiversity. Growing up undiagnosed, Darren faced challenges in school that left him doubting his abilities, but those same experiences shaped his resilience, creativity, and drive. Today, he works with organizations like Nike, Disney, Amazon, and Barclays to change how the world sees neurodivergent talent. Whether on stage, in boardrooms, or through his global campaigns, Darren's mission is clear: to empower people to see their strengths, live their truth, and thrive despite any hurdles their neurodivergent brain may present. What intro. Welcome, Darren, to the show. Welcome back into my life. We've known each other for 20 years, and we get to yet again in our latest projects combine as one. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much, Owen. It's always a pleasure. We like you said, we've known each other for about 20 years now. Every single time we seem to be aligned in giving and serving. So yeah, thank you so much again for letting me be a guest on your podcast.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. And it's always really lovely to have a friend on. It just takes all the pressure off me a little bit, which is great. But what I've always really been inspired by you, and I kind of feel like there's a bit of that in me today, is just it's the drive. It's the drive to do something important, something meaningful. And even when you were running, like your cleaning company and the other bits you were doing, you were always in and around well-being and talking about the well-being aspect of entrepreneurship at my events when you spoke for me. And that was always very inspiring. And I feel like maybe some of that's rubbed off on me. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, likewise as well, Owen. Yeah, I think entrepreneurship, which we may touch on later, is always a key to be looking after your well-being and a part of learning more about yourself and how to the dyslexia side of it has definitely been something that has been a journey for me. And now you mentioned, it's a mission now to help others see the potential in themselves.
Definitely part of your bio there was live their truth, which is basically part of my bio as well. So we're both out there. Do we just want people to be able to express themselves and be comfortable in their own skin? Because it's so hard having to mask and pretend like you're like every other person in the room, and it's just devastating to our sort of sense of self-esteem and who we are. And have you seen that as part of the journey, being on the people you've met? Have you picked up on this sense of maybe a slight lostness because they don't feel like they fit in?
Absolutely, and you mentioned masking, which is a massive a massive thing for someone, especially if they're working in an environment where they feel they have to be someone different. If maybe in the corporate sector, and even if they're kind of starting and running their own business, people think that the corporate sector you have to be you mask in a way, but you don't if you run your own business, which is not necessarily the case, because running your own business, you think to yourself, actually, I need to be performing in a certain way, so what someone would give me business or someone would want to work with me. So I think once you realize and kind of identify and understand yourself, it's amazing how many more people you let in, and most importantly, the right people.
Yeah, sort of that energetic connection as well. As no people they talk about neuroception in polyvagal theory as well. That the energy for your nervous system it affects body language, eye contact, everything gets effective, and people are going to pick up on whatever that energy is, or they seem a bit offish. And networking, you took me to business networking, the first person to take me to one, and I was shitting my pants basically and shivering and all of that stuff. I know so much masking that day, I remember. Whereas now I'd be happy to go into a room and just be my true authentic self because of my diagnosis. Thank God for that. It's fantastic stuff. Anyway, we've already gone off onto different questions here. We're going to wind it on back. So give us some context, buddy. Give us some context on kind of where you are right now in the raising awareness of dyslexia. We're talking about dyslexia today, everyone, by the way, if you didn't know already in the title. So give us some context to where you're at with it now. And we'll dive into a bit more of it later, obviously, but set the scene.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess I was diagnosed at the age of 36, 48 now. So been kind of understanding my own, even today, till today, still trying to understand my own dyslexia, and how that is formed my life and changed my life in so many different ways. So I guess if we talk about going now, I guess the advocacy work that I've been doing since the diagnosis at the age of 36 is really been trying to understand dyslexia, but not just from my perspective, but from lots of different people's perspective, and not just in the UK. So I live in the UK, but I like to understand how dyslexia affects people in lots of different countries as well, and that's something that I've been working on tirelessly. So I work with a lot of organisations, as you mentioned, in the educational sector as well, and I like to kind of create as many different campaigns around this. So I work with a lot of organisations like the British Dyslexia Association, the IDA, so the International Dyslexia Association, and lots of other associations in different parts of the world, like Kenya, in Malawi, and in America as well. That's kind of where I am at the moment.
Yeah, it's amazing. Your work overseas was, I was like, what the hell is he up to now? There you were in this country, this country. That's incredible. And you reshared it on your LinkedIn recently. I encourage people, there'll be links in the description. Go and check it out. Really, really cool stuff. And I think you're right. It's easy for us to sit here in the Western world, in a kind of well-off country, and say this is a version of neurodivergence here. But there's people in our universities that are getting given laptops that can help them with their dyslexic journey. So yeah, it's so true, isn't it? It's easy for us to be in this bubble, but it's really important that we understand the impact of neurodivergence in all backgrounds, income levels, different areas, dangerous areas of the world would make especially ADHD a lot worse because you're hyper vigilant. So have you found you can't say what's all the differences? It's a bit much. But yeah, was it really profound kind of getting this sort of sense of
It really was. It was, I guess it was a real eye opener when I went to Kenya and went to, I spent a lot of time over there working with these two incredible ladies who opened up a school over there. And they opened up a school purely on the basis that their two children had dyslexia, or have dyslexia, sorry. And they were sort of kicked out of mainstream school because they didn't want their low grades to affect the actual, the marks for the school. And so they were literally sort of desolate, didn't have any education. So they started homeschooling their children, and then it kind of formed from there. And more students were being taken out of mainstream school, and they almost then went from just homeschooling their own children to then homeschooling around 2021
Mhm.
students. Um, but there was a lot of complications with this, in the sense that in Kenya, for instance, in certain parts, especially what I experience, is there is a lot of religious belief that if a child has dyslexia, that they do bring a curse to the village. So they were up against so many different challenges within this, and they did have to move home at one point. But subsequently, to this day, they have now got a school, and
Mhm.
they house around about 211 students with dyslexia. And it's just been that's just one part of there. There's a lot more stories in that, but yeah, it's definitely an eye opener.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it's kind of like everyone's got their own journey to go on and the complexities of it all. But I think hearing things like that isn't in any way making that worse or this worse, this worse. It's just saying that different cultures will approach neurodivergence in a certain way. And I think I just try to feel lucky really where I am on the whole. Sorry, guys, I'm a bit over the place today. I'm absolutely exhausted. You know the drill. So I will keep us on track, Darren, I promise. So let's jump in. So you mentioned well, kind of we touched a little bit on why you're doing it, but if we can just look at that moment when you
Mm.
discovered this diagnosis for yourself, give us a little snapshot of that moment. I think it's really important for people to understand, what were the emotions that came up? Was it relief? Was it grief? Was it like, oh my God? Give us a sense. I found it really fascinating.
Mm. Absolutely. So up until this point, just to give you a little really quick bit of context. So I went undiagnosed with dyslexia until the age of 36. So up until then, I left school with no qualifications, wasn't allowed to sit any exams, and then subsequently then got into a job just pushing trolleys 12 hours a week and fell in love with retail. And that gave me the opening to actually really kind of thrive, because it was an environment that I was allowed to really kind of, I guess, be myself. So I worked really, really hard. I grew a corporate career, a very successful corporate career. And then I left that corporate career to start my own business. Now, this was around the time. So I remember thinking to myself, there was these challenges and I just didn't know anything about it. I didn't, up until the age of 36, I never actually heard the word dyslexia, or maybe I did hear it. I just didn't know what it was. And I just had no correlation of what it was and how it would affect me. The actual time that I got the understanding in what dyslexia was I remember just working at home and I was watching a TV program, and I think it was like an afternoon TV interview. It was like Points West or something, which they used to have on the UK in the UK about 4 o'clock. And a news reporter was interviewing a lady at a florist, and she was talking about all of these amazing bouquets and things, and all the colors of the flowers and the smells. And the lady kept saying, well, I can tell you what the bouquet is from the smells and the colors and all the things, but don't ask me to spell them because of my dyslexia. And this conversation went on. I mean, it was only about a 6 minute segment. And this conversation went on and on and on. And she kept saying the word dyslexia. And what I realized is that it wasn't, and being an entrepreneur in my mind, I'm thinking, this is a conversation about business. I really, that's why I lent in originally. But when I realized she was talking about dyslexia, Owen, was the first time in 36 years that I felt like someone was actually talking to me, like talking to me, understood how I felt. She started talking about how dyslexia affects her, how it inspires her, how it motivates her, how it's the struggle she found. So I did what everyone else would do: is I jumped onto Google, worked out how to spell dyslexia, and once I did, I put it out, and then that kind of started my journey to understand. I contacted the British Dyslexia Association to understand about diagnosis, all these different things. Fast forward a period of time, I then got a diagnosis, and when I got it, I when you get it, there's no like hooray, there's no solution. It's not like suddenly, like if you pass your driving test, it's amazing because you can now have the freedom to drive. You can you can go and purchase a car. You've got this, it's, but getting the diagnosis for me, it was almost like the journey just started, because I then had to still understand what dyslexia was and how dyslexia affected me and how I can live with it. But the first 6, 7, 8 months, I almost went through a little bit of a kind of a grief period, because all of the things in my life that I would put down to that I didn't say I didn't get an interview in a certain job, or I didn't get the promotion in a different job, or I was in an environment which now I wouldn't put myself in that environment. But when you're in the corporate sector, there's online, there's training days where you're sort of you're just frazzled for 2 days flat, and all of these things. I was thinking to myself, I failed at. I now knew that I didn't necessarily fail. It was just the way, the environment that I was in, and the way that someone was asking me to deliver that task in that moment. And I almost got flashbacks for about 6, 7, 8 months. And they were quite hard to deal with, if I'm honest. And I was really trying to understand how that affected me. So I don't think there's this kind of ooh-ha kind of moment of now that you're diagnosed, it's fine. Especially and what I've learned from speaking to thousands and thousands of people over the years is that it's very personal to an individual. It's very much, how, and that's why you open the question, how was it for you? And I think that's my initial experience, especially the first year. I found it quite tough.
Yeah, thanks so much. And it's kind of you touched on something really powerful there about there's not actually anything wrong with the brains that anyone's been delivered with into this world. It's where we are, how we have to fit this brain into a space that isn't right for it. It's interesting, is it's like NDAs in a neurotypical world, neurodivergence in a neurotypical world is basically the problem rather than the brains themselves. But you can't get the world to completely change the way it approaches this. But we can make reasonable adjustments, which is the key word in this space, reasonable adjustments. But yeah, what your thoughts there, just to hone in on that, is that our brains are perfect and beautiful the way they are. They're just in the wrong space.
I think the environments can be, and I guess if we take dyslexia and we start talking about how it affects an individual, say if we're talking a workplace, people would initially think it's it's just a written thing. It isn't. It could be the fact that the lights above you can affect you. It could be the fact that you would go in first thing in the morning, and do you know how impactful it could be if you cannot if you go onto your laptop and the password's changed, or you can't get into doing something. These micro moments, which could take 1 or 2 minutes, could throw you off for a good 4 or 5 hours, could even be longer. The, the reasonable adjustments really need to be understanding of the whole thing really needs to be looked at from the word go, not just from the HR, from the recruitment process, from the whole thing of how you can manage and help an individual. Now, the problem we find within most workplaces, let's say some workplaces, is that if you are brave enough and say that you have dyslexia, and hopefully you have a very supportive workplace that allows this, but genuinely what happens is they don't understand enough. So what happens is you then become the advocate for that organization. And I've seen this in giant organizations. I won't name the organizations, but I have seen this in giant organizations that are earning tens and tens and tens of millions of pounds. And you have one individual that has mentioned that they have dyslexia. And now that person has become the advocate, but not just the advocate, which is amazing, don't get me wrong, but that person then becomes the expert in that environment. And then everyone else that wants to learn about how dyslexia affects them, they go to that person. Now, this is the problem because it just puts more and more pressure on this individual, and they're not actually getting the support that they actually need. So when we look at reasonable adjustments, I think the whole thing really does need to be looked at.
Yeah, I think, and people forget, talk about this in the school setting about the changes that we need to make, but it carries on after that, and you well know that your career path shows that it goes on way below. So if you don't know, it goes on and on. You struggle and you struggle and you struggle, and it affects, because you can lead to addiction, anxiety, depression, because you just completely don't know how to cope in this world, and it's devastating. And I think even when you do get the diagnosis, there's so much research to do, but only if you know where to look, or the right people to trust, and the right literature that's out there. And I guess that's why we're all here. That's why you and me are in this space, and we're just trying to say signpost them in the right place, because you can get the wrong information. There is plenty of wrong information on ADHD out there, I can promise you. And it's actually not helpful.
And as you articulated so beautifully around the support within the educational side of it, and the flow of where it goes. I mean, the perfect scenario would be that someone gets diagnosed. You don't have to necessarily be diagnosed, but just know how to kind of support someone with dyslexia throughout the educational system. You think about it. What happens normally in the education system? Someone gets support, which is brilliant. But then when they go to university or college, if that's what they choose to do, if it's then passed over from the educational to the university or the college, then that's great, because then they continue to get the support. It's when they leave that environment and then they go to the workplace, because what you're really doing then, unless you go into access to work, which is another, a government scheme which can help and support, if the organization is on board with this, that link between the actual support drops. And then, but just imagine, so for me, I never had any support in the educational system. I never went to college or university because I wasn't allowed to sit any exams because I was undiagnosed with dyslexia, and then went straight into the work environment, which was unknown about dyslexia. So, that's the path, and that's where we do lose people, as you mentioned, addiction, people going to prison, people, going into even down to finances and things like this. There's so many different struggles that someone has, not just in those settings, but in real life as well.
Yeah, it's so true. And I can talk to you all day about the political side of all this and the structure of the world. But we'll have you back on for that. Um, but it does really set the tone. And I think it's really important for anybody listening now, because we have a lot of listeners, Darren, who kind of like are self-diagnosed at this point and various neurodivergent neurotypes, and thinking, oh, and they're using this as a way of, discovering if they want to go for assessment, for example. So this is our chance to let people have an insight. You've already touched on it. This isn't just about being able to read a book. There's so much more to it. So let's dive into a little bit more of that. Like, what are the common struggles? The word's a bit tricky, but what are the common things that someone with dyslexia may experience? For anybody listening that's like, oh, I'm not sure.
So when we talk about dyslexia, as we know, we talk about obviously neurodivergent, neurodiversity, and then what we've been told and what we've known is that even though I have dyslexia, there's a high percentage I have ADHD, maybe a percentage of autism, maybe dyspraxia, dyscalculia, and this is where it becomes a little bit difficult in the sense of trying to understand, how your mind works and what you can do to help and support this. Because I know that I have dyslexia and ADHD, but I've learned so much over the years of how each one of those things can kind of help and support. With regards to, and again, I can only talk from my own experience of dyslexia. Now, I know that certain tasks can become overwhelming quite quickly. Certain things can really kind of, when I say overwhelm, to a point that you will just procrastinate and just not do these things. I know that certain environments can be completely overstimulating. For instance, we talked about networking and shows beforehand. Now, if I like after this podcast, I will need to go and lie down for half an hour and put some classical music in just to kind of level out, or I will be up until, God knows what time. Just my brain would just be absolutely racing. Is that dyslexia? Is that ADHD? Now, for me, when I talk about comparing the actual two, those are my coping mechanisms of how I can deal with being able to kind of channel that. The common things with dyslexia we are chosen to know is that it's I wouldn't say the inability to read, but those are the most difficult things. So concentration and the ability to read. But it does come down to so many different other aspects of that. Being able to concentrate on something, being able to do application, being able to take the actual words that someone is saying and think about it, process it, and then be able to then talk and deliver that. For me personally, I have a long-term memory of things. I can remember what someone was wearing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago in a certain sentence that they said. But the immediate information, like if we came on, Owen, and obviously we've known each other for 20 years, but there is a case for me that someone would instantly say, "Hi, I'm such and such," and they will say their name and it's gone instantly. And I cannot recall that back. So then you go into a hyper sort of focus of trying to understand that while you're not listening to these actual words. Dyslexia happens to someone there's so many things that happens to someone with dyslexia. And sometimes people just put it down to, oh, that's just the way I am. That's just the way that I take these situations. What I've learned to do over the years and really helped me is to just write a little bit of a diary of some of the things that I found challenging. And then I was just trying to understand how I can actually find mechanisms to be able to help to kind of ease those things. And that's a really great tool that's enabled me to do that over the years. But it'd be really interesting every time I talk to someone, there seems to be, I don't know if it's new evidence, but someone is talking more about different things that helps them with regards to dyslexia and different things that are affecting them with regards to dyslexia. But it categorically isn't just about reading and writing. There's so much more to it.
Yeah, thank you. There's a word that you said that I got very excited about because it's been flying around my head the whole time we chat, which is processing. I'm fascinated right now. I'm doing lots of research, there's lots of podcasts and reading books about it. This processing aspect of neurodivergence, which with my partner who's dyslexic, she experiences this a lot. Like you said, it's like, especially even if you're reading something. So you read a sentence, your brain then needs to process those words, make sense of what those words mean. What does that sentence really mean? Get the meaning of the words, reflect on that, and then be able to move on to the next sentence that will tie in with the previous one. Absolutely burns her out. Her brain is smashed to smithereens. And that's a devastating part for her. We don't know if it's because there's some processing issues with autism as well and some ADHD stuff. But for her, the dyslexia seems to fit really well into the processing of information and being able to move on to the next bit to link it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And also as well, small talk. Small talk's very difficult. If you're in a controlled environment and you know the person, then you can have a conversation with someone. Okay, so if you're relaxed in the sense of like we can have a conversation, okay, but if there becomes an authoritative figure in the sense of, i.e., a boss or a test or something in that puts you in an uncomfortable situation. I always have this analogy when we talk about it's like kind of like the water cooler. So water cooler chats. So kind of when someone goes up to get a coffee or get just some water from dispense some water out, and then your boss would come along or someone would come along and ask you a question. Now this question could just be, "How was your weekend?" It can't necessarily. It could be where are those files? Where is this? Where's that? But it could be literally how was your weekend? Now, I remember back many years ago, and I didn't really understand why I did this, but I wouldn't necessarily want to lie. Okay, I'm not a liar in that sense, but I would make up stories because in my head I would think that I needed to do something. I needed to say something. So I'll give you an example. I remember going into work one day. And I was just making myself a coffee in the morning, and my boss at the time came in and said, "Oh, what did you go up to this weekend?" And straight away in my head, I was thinking, I need to come up with a story. So I said, "Oh, I went skiing." And they said, "Well, what do you mean you went skiing?" And they said, "You're only off Saturday and Sunday." I said, "Oh yeah, it was and then I'm thinking, oh, it was dry slope skiing." And they're like, "Oh, where's that?" And then in my head, I'm thinking, "Oh, Cambridge." They're like, "You went all the way to Cambridge." Can you see the web of lies and these happening? And that's just trying to process this conversation, just trying to process something, because maybe that's people pleasing, maybe that's inferior of confidence, maybe that's process, and whatever that is. I used to do those things, and it wasn't inherently because I wanted to make a story up, because most people would turn around and go, "Not much." Do you get them to anything? But you see, from my mind and how I had to process things, I would come up with these stories, and I look back on them now and they're a little bit cringy, but I guess that's just part of my journey.
Oh, don't get me started on small talk. I've said on the show many times that it makes me want to vomit everywhere because I can't stand it. I'd much rather sit on a call with you for an hour on a Wednesday night like we're doing, have the most amazing chat. I do not want to chat to someone in the schoolyard about the weather and where we're going on our half-term holidays. No, thank you. If you want to tell me about why you picked a half-term holiday based on childhood experiences, then maybe we can talk about that.
Yeah.
I think that's the key. But I don't know. It's interesting that one, isn't it? Kind of, I think that can cover quite a lot of neurotypes. But I don't know. There's this element of trying to make sense of the world, really, because we've always felt we didn't fit in and we didn't know why, and we just try to adjust and mask and put on a show, And it wires your brain that way, and it's really hard to unwire it, and that's what I'm doing now since diagnosis. And yeah, so what your thoughts there is kind of like you try to fit in so much that you are literally adjusting to tell people what they want to hear.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to confidence as well. The confidence is a big thing. It's confidence in your own ability. Now, remember, if you're in an environment where you're tasked to do things continuously and you're not very comfortable on how to actually do these, and there's no breathing space to be able to do it your way, and sometimes you don't even know your way until you're given that environment to be able to do these things. That's the situation. So you're always running on adrenaline. You're always double thinking, quadruple thinking, all of these different things, and you're always just waiting to be caught out, even though not necessarily they're trying to catch you out, but you put yourself in these environments. I think allowing people to. This is the other thing as well. When you go when you're in school, when you're in an organization or wherever you are, and you mention around dyslexia, everyone thinks that you should know everything about it. Now, this is where we are in different stages. Now, you gone all in and understood ADHD, and you do an incredible job speaking to some amazing people, and you've done some amazing work on this. I've been very, very I'm humble with the amount of people I've spoken to over the years and learning from them around dyslexia, but not everyone has that opportunity. I wouldn't say everyone has that opportunity. Not everyone does that. Someone can just have dyslexia and still don't really know, what that means and how that can help and and affect them. So I think it's not having too much expectation. As soon as someone says, "Oh, I have dyslexia or ADHD," it's not then thinking that that person knows everything about it. It's having a conversation and understanding how, where they are within their journey, and just sharing knowledge on this. But I've found this so much in the workplaces that as soon as you mention something like this, they deem you as an expert. And I do feel for some people that they're supposed to know everything else and help everyone else within this side of it, when theoretically, really, they just need a little bit of support at that stage.
Yeah, it's interesting that one, isn't it? It's because, quite often people don't believe you, you give them diagnosis, and then they're like, oh, give me the examples of it. And then your mind just goes blank and you can't think of all the presentations, because I call them presentations is my word for it. But like we said on the show, how you feel about this, I think having the diagnosis label is so important in so many ways to get your needs met and element of truth, but also I think it's how life presents itself within you is the bit that really matters. So what bit holds you back? What bit's stopping you living your dreams? What bit is keeping you stuck and overstimulated and in pain? How can we work through that, regardless of whatever neurotype we have, even if it's neurotypical even, it's just how does how does your experience present? How do you see the world, and how can you make that easier for yourself so you can actually live a more flowing life, I suppose. It's a weird one. Darren, I'm very like on the fence about does the diagnosis, how much does it define me, and how much is all that matters is the symptoms, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I know, I've spoken to thousands of people over the years that aren't officially diagnosed, but they just know. They've told me, I have dyslexia, I'm pretty sure I'm ADHD, and I'm sure there's some autism there. That's the kind of, not always in that order. And I'm very much on the basis of that's fine. That's incredible. That I think the first thing is just knowing yourself,
Yeah.
what it is, like you said, that that will give you that more flow, and just understand more about yourself and what you will put up with and what you won't.
Yeah. I mean, self-compassion is so much easier as well because you're able to meet that experience with an element of witnessing and having compassion around it. That's the bit that's changed my life. So, oh, okay, I know what's happening here. I'm overstimulated and it's causing me to behave in this way. Deal with the stimulation issue, the behavior will ease rather than going, I'm a bad person because of my behavior. It's just getting out of that loop, isn't it? Really important. There's one thing that I experienced that I'll ask you about. You're the expert. We're talking about everyone's an expert. No, my brain, right? Let's see if this feels familiar. My brain is reading and planning a sentence way quicker than my fingers can either write or type. So I'm the typo king. There's always so many typos and grammar issues because I'm three words further forward than the word I'm typing. I've never been able to master it or understand what's happening there, and it's why I make the typos. It can be quite frustrating, but my brain runs at much faster speed than my fingers. Is this a familiar thing that comes up? Have you heard this on your travels?
It's very common, and a lot of the time when we're trying to do something, we're trying to race. We're trying to race to get the information. It's that classic when someone tells you something, you think, oh, actually, I'll remember this, and it's just gone within seconds. The actual reading side of it. So I can actually read, and I taught myself to read at kind of like 17. So up until then, I wasn't really able to read very well. Now I can read really, really fast, and I'm not so. However, it's so fast that I'm not necessarily taking in all the information, and then afterwards I'm forgetting it, as you mentioned before. But that speed reading is almost, and I will mention, and I know you mentioned this just now as well, is if I do 3 pages of a book, I feel like I need a sleep. I am literally like burnt right out. I'm just exhausted. And so I almost sort of speed read. So in my mind, I don't know if this is similar to yourself, Owen, but I will read something really quickly because I almost feel whenever I'm reading something, someone has set a timer,
Hmm.
because I know that after 3 pages, or if I'm really lucky, depending on what environment and what time of the day it is and how stimulated I am in this, I know that I'm excited to read this. I want to read it. I want to take the information in, but I know that timer is going to go off after 3 or 4 pages and I'm not going to be able to read anymore. So for me personally, again, just talking from a personal experience, that speed reading, I've almost taught myself to try and read as fast as I can before I'm not able to read anymore. But that common effect of your finger won't keep up. Yeah, I've heard this many times from individuals, and this is where we talk about dyslexia and reading. Everyone thinks that everyone with dyslexia hates reading or doesn't like it. It's not the case. I actually love reading, but it's sometimes a little bit cruel in the sense that sometimes you're not able to.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's kind of like also adjusting to how you need to receive the information. I guess as we touched a little bit that now as we go to the next question, which is talking about how we get past these barriers with those adjustments. So for me, all my guests know and all my friends know, I hate writing text messages. It's like you said, not with the it was reading, not typing, but it burns me out. Like having to think what I'm going to say. There's that sentence. Next sentence, I'm just sat there in my chair. My brain is just on fire because I'm having to type it. So fuck it. So just get the voice message out and go, "Hey Darren, how you mate?" And that's how I do it. And I say to people, look, I ask permission, is it okay to send you a voice message of someone new? And then I just really honest. I say, because my ADHD, I cannot type, it kills me. And they're like, oh yeah, that's totally fine. But they want to type. They don't want to do voice messages. They find that tricky. Perfect. Everyone wins. And it's just being to be upfront about it is incredible. You're like, yes, or I can't. And it feels great, to be able to honor your truth like that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I have a running joke with some people because whenever I send them a voice note, they always say, "Oh, I listen to your podcast," because it sometimes goes on and on and on. But genuinely, when LinkedIn, for instance, had introduced the voice notes many moons ago, I was thrilled because it's understanding and utilizing these tools around you, and you're absolutely right as well, Owen. Have the beauty of what you've just said is having the respect of how someone would like to receive that information. And I think that is the key part in absolutely everything is when we break these things down is what tools are available, what can we do to help and support individuals, and how can we communicate. The fact that you and I communicate from a voice note speeds up the process tenfold. You don't burn out. I don't burn out. We both get the same message. We know what's going on. So so within that one encounter, we've been able to solve and lots of different problems, and we've been able to communicate within that side of it. If we looked at a whole different aspect of other things of our day in the life of life and work, there's lots of things that can kind of help and support individuals.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I think this era that we're in now, the age that we're in now, I feel like we're the last generation. I've been saying this a lot, you and me, that sort of age group, the last generation that's suddenly getting to discover the truth late. And my stepson is already going through the assessment at 9, he's way ahead of the game. So I'm hoping we're the last generation, hopefully, mostly, so that generation going through. But that generation has got write to text apps, which I love. I love those. I just say something out and it writes it out. I did that from when I was doing my degree for graphic design, my first year. That's what I did, mate. They said, yeah, go for it. You've got ADHD, say it, it will write it out for me. And they said, perfect. And AI, I find putting all the political stuff AI to one side, but Gemini's my best friend now on my Android. If I want to find something, I have to like type stuff, read through, go to different websites. I go, Gemini, hook me up, mate. He tells me it's a game changer for not burning out my brain. I think, I don't know, we're in a good age, I find, aren't we, for scaffolding ourselves, I guess.
Absolutely, and understanding how the next generation are utilizing these tools as well. So, I mentioned, my stepson, he very rarely, so he'll use voice notes and he'll use all of the different things as well. But even with the TV, so the Sky TV, he would just walk. We got Sky Glass or something, so he would walk into the front room and he would just mention. He would call the the TV, and then say what channel he wants. Probably YouTube or whatever it was, and without even picking the remote up. And then we've got, I won't say the music side of it because it's in the next room and it'll probably go off. But it's a well-known brand. By Amazon, I think, and so a lot of it is voice activated now. So a lot of people are using these things, and it's been fun to watch from especially from a dyslexic point of view. The only thing I don't think they've encountered the best within this side of it is the actual logging in, and I mentioned this very early of this talk. If you get logged out of a Sky box or a Now TV box or all these different things, and you have to put in the most laborious, email addresses and all the other bits and pieces, and that potentially could give you a point where you just don't want to actually turn the box on or do stuff. So there are some things that need to be helped and worked on. But yeah, it's just interesting to use these.
Yeah, it's so true. And yeah, when they send you passkey, so you passkey to your phone and then a passkey to another email address. I'm like, please kill me now. I've had enough. I hate it. It's like I just want to have a quick look. That's how my life works. But that's another story. So yeah, as we sort of come towards the end, we kind of covered stuff that's coming up, so that's quite handy. But as far as succeeding, we just touched on it there, I guess. I guess it's looking at how, when you're growing something or you do a creative pursuit and you want to learn or grow a business or do a degree or whatever, it's there is some pushing involved, there is some hard work involved, but there has to be an element of ease. And when I say ease, I mean that you're not completely burnt out by just reading a sentence, a few sentences, or like in my case, having to write or whatever. I think it's just, I guess, trying to find ways to tap in to the bit that you are incredible at or kind of good at, and it seems to flow nicely. I'm building off of that. Is that what you would say is the key thing to do, really, is leaning on your strengths? I know it's a very cheesy coaching phrase, but it's true.
No, I completely agree. I didn't realize how much I outsource, and I've pretty much done it as a kid. We talk about business, we put outsourcing, getting someone to do the marketing, getting someone to do the admin, all of these different things. And we do this within life with people in a kind way. And obviously the person that you're asking to kind of help and lean on in that sense and to help and support has to be, you have to kind of ask within that side of it. But I didn't realize throughout all of my jobs, all of my careers in business, and everything I've done, I've just been able to surround myself with incredible, incredible, incredible people that have all had skills in certain areas that I didn't necessarily have. And that's one of the things that I really honed in on. I thought to myself, what am I good at? And I think these are those reflective moments when you can kind of just sit on a beach and just grab your pad and start writing things down and really kind of go into yourself and think, what is it that, what is it that I'm good at? What is it that I want to do? How can I serve? You know, almost like these kind of self-audit. And I think we spend a lot of time, and I've learned this when we had, several different businesses as well. We'd spend a lot of time trying to do things that don't necessarily aren't the best things for us within this time. And I don't just mean financially, I mean this in mentally, spiritually, in the sense of, the well-being side of it. And we will spend hours and hours and hours, and we don't ever really kind of understand our own time and how much that's worth from not just a financial point of view, but from a well-being point of view. So I think that, yeah, the biggest thing I've done is I've surrounded myself with incredible people. And I've been able to kind of lean on their knowledge and skills because I think the minute you start thinking you know everything and you don't really need anyone else, that's when it becomes a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, I think so. It's drainers, isn't it? It's picking up on the drainers. You think maybe it's fine, I have to do this as part of the deal. But if they're a real drainer, it saps all your energy. You're not able to then show up in the way you need to. And I think people like you and me are quite good talkers. So I think if we're running, quite creative people as well. We like to build stuff, right? Like to, whether it's a business or a creative pursuit or whatever it may be. I think just leaning into that, that's where we thrive. We're the ideas guys. We're the ones that create the change from the bottom, and then you pass it on to people that want to structure it all up, perhaps, while we carry on growing that. I don't know. It's just finding your place in that, and
I think that's absolutely fine. And when if you looked from a business point of view, well, even from some, with your dyslexia, that element is it's okay to be creative, and there's so many people with dyslexia that are creative within this side of it, but you do hit a certain level that it's not because you can't do that next level, it's because it just doesn't inspire you and it's just not fun. And when I
yeah,
say not fun, and don't get me wrong, there are things every day that we have to do, and I do that I don't necessarily enjoy, but genuinely if you took the large part of time that you spend on something, I'm very much like you, Owen, in the sense of ideas, create something, have that, and then I need someone else then to kind of structure certain elements around that side of it. But I think if you can put yourself in, and there'll never be a perfect environment, but if you can understand what environment that you thrive in, then anyone else that you bring in, friend, family member, team member, whatever that looks like, they're going to get the best version of you.
yeah. I'm kind of moving away from the shoulds as well. You should do this, should do that, and just trying not to let people influence how it should look. how a business should look, and it may take longer if you do it on your own terms. But I don't know, when you, like you and me, when you spent a lot, 30 plus years, not even knowing what your own terms even were. I mean, when you get them, you want to at least try and build something from that.
You do, but the other thing as well is comparing. You know, what who do you compare to and what do you compare to? But then I've also learned over the years of, sometimes it's just the front. You don't really know what's going on behind the scenes within that side of it. So I think, in different success for someone is different for so many different people. And I think if you, from a dyslexic point of view, in that confidence of thinking, I don't fit into the work environment, I would start a business, but everyone's telling me I'm dyslexic, I'm creative, but I'm not actually feeling creative. And that's understandable. You are creative, and maybe there's other elements of skills. And I think this is the labeling sometimes. Is someone, when we talk about dyslexia, they say, you must be able to do art, you must be able to do, a singer, a songwriter, and all these different things. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the actual case. I can't draw. My art is terrible. However, I'm creative in the way that I can see things and visualize things and come up with ideas and all of these different things. So when we say the word creativity and we talk about dyslexia, I would channel into that side of it and understand what that actually means. And are there any other attributes that you do that can kind of help? But the main thing sometimes is the environment that you're in, which is stopping you from being creative or being ...
Yeah, it certainly is, and thank you for clarifying that, because you're right about the creativity. I see creativity as just creating something, and it can be literally anything. It's building something or having an idea in your mind. You create a slogan for something, or you create new lyrics for a song. You're creating different lyrics for that song. That's creative. You're a creative being. This exploring wordplay. This is all it. And people to do wordplay may end up doing a YouTube channel and become a millionaire because of the way they can do wordplay with original songs. Doesn't have to be a business. And I love people like that. I'm very drawn to them because we just riff, incredible energy. It's amazing. Amazing stuff. This is very, very exciting. But as we wrap up, I've got a brand new question. You're the first person to ask my
Wow.
question, world famous question 8. But just to tie everything up, just to get your thoughts on this, as we're talking about dyslexia for the first time. You talked earlier about dyslexia, ADHD, dyspraxia, autism, how there could be elements of that, a certain percentage within your brain. I'm slowly starting to come to a place, I must for your opinion here, so come to a place where I see it more as like a flat ruler on a table. So it maybe at one end is ADHD, one end is autism, maybe dyspraxia just off that, this end. And I think there's just this long line of just brains, and they have different elements, different ingredients from a neurotype. And neurotypicals maybe have 1% of all of them, but they're just non-existent. But they're part of a chemical makeup that can be informed in the womb, if that makes sense. I feel like putting us all in boxes, I don't think it's very helpful. Hey, autistics over there. Hey, dyspraxics over there. How are you? I just don't like that. I think we should all come together and say, how does life present itself to us? And let's work together. What are your thoughts there?
Absolutely. I think, I guess as humans, we like to kind of categorize things. And I think it's inherent that we will do these things. Hence why, I'm known for talking about dyslexia, and I've gone all in talking about this. And although I know that I have ADHD as well, and I felt that because I wanted to kind of understand how dyslexia affected me and how it helped me grow in lots of other ways. But I think inherently we do, as humans, I guess, and I won't go down the psychology route, but we do like to put people in these different boxes, and I think that can become a problem in so many ways when if we're looking to help and support people, if we in education or in the workplace. Because if you go up and say to someone, okay, I have dyspraxia or dyscalculia or ADHD or autism or dyslexia, then the first thing they're going to do is almost bring out the dyslexia rule book in the sense of, okay, so you have dyslexia, so you struggle with reading, right? You struggle with writing, you struggle with concentration, right? Okay. But if you went there and said I have ADHD, would they then bring out the ADHD rule book? And and I think that's the difficult part. And I think uncategorizing some of these things, and I think there is a place to understand these things, because we need to understand that dyslexia is X and things. But I think it does come down to having conversations and with the individual and really kind of understanding how to be able to support and support their needs. And I've kept mentioning the word support their needs. Now, I'm going to flip this over, because I don't want it to sound like, oh, I have dyslexia, or someone has dyslexia and we just need support and support and support. It's not that. That is not the case. What it really is just trying to understand that you have put someone in an environment that you're not going to get the best out of them. You're just not. You're not going to. And what will happen is this person will leave and not continue to work there, or they will struggle through the educational sector. Understanding the individual so that we have just at least got a level playing field of being able to deliver the task that you have asked us to deliver. We're not asking for special treatment. We're not asking for people to give all of these different things. We're just trying to get you to understand exactly where we are and how we can deliver this in such a way. So that's what I want to flip around, because a lot of conversations are around support and needs and extra time and all these different things. And these are great and they are put in place and they do help. But if we can understand that the individual is capable and even more is capable to deliver those tasks if they were dealt in a different way.
Yeah, thank you. Very, very powerful. Not seeing support as, oh, you poor thing. Do you need some help? Because you're incapable. That's not the message here. It's, I'm ready. I'm pumped. I'm ready to deliver to this team. I'm ready to deliver to this business. Would you mind if we just adjust this so I can do this? And then you thrive and you end up being absolute key part of the team. It's like we all want to do stuff with our lives. We are, I like to think we're ready. It's just being create an environment again, like we said at the beginning, that can best suit that. But I don't want to be like, oh, please make adjustments because I'm just so rubbish, help me. That's not what it is. And I see a little bit of that in my place, but I'm in major retail, so I guess you get what you get. But that's another. Everyone knows where I work, but I'm not going to say the name. But it is what it is. Amazing, Darren. Thank you so much. I really love this. And before we get your parting message of hope for the audience, we always like to end on a really beautiful moment. There's a new question that I'm going to start asking people because I'm really, really excited about this sort of stuff. You're the first person, so congrats. Can you give me a key moment or two or achievement that you're most proud of despite your neurodivergent potentially holding you back? Because I want to hear people before they're diagnosed, so that they look back and go, how the hell did I do that with dyslexia or ADHD? Can you think of a key moment or two where you're like, whoa, that's so cool?
Yeah, I guess for me, because education was, I was kind of, my education was stolen really. And I can say that confidently, in the sense that I wasn't. So when I left school with no qualifications, struggling to read and write, and going into the world trying to get a job, which was just really bad. This was back in the day when you used to get application forms and write these out on paper. This wasn't
Hmm.
the long-winded process you go through now. And I guess for me, getting that first job, pushing trolleys 12 hours a week, um, a well-known supermarket, called Sainsbury's. I can say that. And that to me, and this is where I think about success in these things, that for me was a massive achievement, because that was the 47th application form that I filled out, that my mum helped me fill out at the time to apply for. And once I got that job, I didn't realize at the time how pinnacle that would be to be able to help and grow and to become, a regional director and looking after, £4 million worth of sales every week and all the other different things that came with it, all these different jobs and everything else. But I think that was a moment, the time I reflected on how far I'd come and what I'd actually achieved was after I'd got the diagnosis. So I was just thinking, how on earth did I manage to get into that corporate career and grow without one single qualification and struggling to read and all the other things, and managed to kind of climb that ladder? I think that was pre-diagnosis of dyslexia. That was an achievement. I don't think many would have done. given the circumstances as well, because it wasn't, and we'll go on this on a different podcast, but it wasn't just the educational side. There was a lot of other circumstantial things that was, prohibiting me to be able to do these things. So I guess that's from a work point of view. I think that was one thing I look back on. I think, fair play. You worked hard for that.
Yeah, I think I know you long enough. I probably could have given the same answer on your behalf because that part of your story is incredible. The no qualifications, working your way up in retail, and the level that you got to is just, yeah, mind blowing considering where it all begun and the power of perseverance and wanting to do something, wanting to be part of a team, part of a community, do something worthwhile. It's all very powerful drives. So yeah, I think that is the essence of who you are, mate. It's very, very inspiring. So thank you. So, to wrap up the show, my friend, it's your chance now. I've had 40 people do this at this point. This is your parting message of joy. So, it's a chance to speak to the listeners, especially those that are dyslexic or think they might be, just to let them know everything's going to be cool. They're amazing as they are. You know, the usual stuff. Send us on a high.
So words of inspiration. I would basically say that you're not broken, and no matter how many people put you in a box and think that you are broken, you just need to flip that lid, and give things a try, and you will be absolutely amazed how much you can achieve in just such a short space of time. Being able to do the things that you've always dreamed of or you've seen other people do, you can do this tenfold. And I think once you understand the sheer brilliance and the ability that you can actually do, once you get out of your own way, is truly remarkable. But I'd say the main thing you need to do is just be kind to yourself, and don't give yourself massive expectations that you need to do XXX by such a short space of time. I think you can have dreams, and I think you can deliver and do whatever you need to do. But don't let dyslexia hold you back. And set yourself some goals, set yourself some really wild goals, and set yourself some achievable goals so that you can keep yourself on track. But I firmly believe, from my own personal journey, of really struggling, and I've been able to meet some incredible people and travel some fabulous places, and I think everyone's got that in them. So whatever it is special to you, whatever you're holding back on, just revisit it and give it a go, because you don't know how many people you will inspire by doing it.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you very much. I concur. We're having slight tweaks every time someone says it. It's the same stuff, and then a few little tweaks which can really hit home for somebody. So, yeah, thank you so much. I just want to thank you for your time because it's the first time we covered dyslexia on the show. I feel we're just touching the tip of the iceberg, of course. There's so much more to cover, but everybody's pretty much coming back on a couple of months later. So, you'll be in my inbox. I'll be going to your inbox very shortly to say, hey, come on back. But yeah, thank you so much. And where can we find you? Where can people check out what you're up to? Check out those amazing videos about your overseas adventures. Where can we go?
Yeah, so I'm currently working on a project. Well, I've been working on a project for the past few years, telling people's story around neurodiversity. So we've got neurodiversity stories, and you can find me on LinkedIn under Darren Clark. It's where I very mainly am. So yeah, feel free to connect on LinkedIn, and check out the stories, and help us serve as many people as we can.
Yes, amazing stuff. I'll put the links in the show notes, especially to the neurodiversity stories you're doing. There's incredible stuff on there, so go and check it out. And I am planning to go through the archive from the World Health Heroes and everything I was doing 8 years ago, and I really want to sort of repurpose and re-release some of that content onto my YouTube channel. So you might see a little bit more of Darren and everyone on there, because what a waste that is for it not to be out there. It's all like unlisted. And that makes me very sad. So let's bring it out. And you get to see Owen, who was unaware completely that he was ADHD. You get to see it live on a TV show, which is great. Amazing stuff, Darren. Thank you so much. Thank you for your friendship as always. Thank you for coming on the show, giving your time, especially this late on an evening. I think we're both going to go away now into a dark hole and just reset so we can come out fresh again.
Thank you so much, Owen, and thank you again for everything you do for the community and the people you serve. It's truly wonderful. So thank you.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Like I said, I'm inspired by everybody I meet, including yourself. So that's a huge one. So thank you, everybody, for listening at home. It's been a couple of weeks until I launch my ADHD coaching business. It's going to look very different model of setup for coaching. So I'm sort of working on my little bio and mission statement today, and I'm super excited. So look out for that. The podcast will continue even when I'm doing that. You'll see me doing paid partnerships with certain companies that I believe in. So there's lots of good stuff happening at ND and Free. Stick around for the adverts coming up next. Anquay's Mushroom Gummies, amazing company, really helped my brain, really helped my mood, everyone. I can't remember last time I had low mood since being on them. Incredible stuff. So Anquay Mushroom Gummies, check it out. You get 15% off with my code Owen15 at checkout. There's marketing there, Darren. You should be proud.
Very proud of it.
Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time for more ND Chat. ND and Free is in partnership with Anquay Mushroom Gummies. Since my ADHD diagnosis in October 2024, I had been trying to find a supplement to help my struggle to focus, ease my brain fog, and help my overall energy. I'd been getting mixed results from multiple supplements until I came across Anquay's Mushroom Gummies. So I removed all other supplements and began to take 2 of the delicious tasting gummies each morning after eating. By the 4th week, I really started to notice I could focus for longer and my brain fog wasn't anywhere near as bad. Naturally, they may not work for everybody, but I feel it's my mission to at least let you all know about these gummies. They include 10 functional mushrooms within them, including lion's mane, shiitake, and turkey tail mushrooms. With their non-GMO, gluten-free, and filler-free gummies, they offer a tasty solution to an ND brain. You can order one-off pouches with 60 gummies inside, or sign up to the discounted monthly bundles. Best of all, if you use my code Owen15, you'll get 15% off your order. Visit www.anquay.com and use code Owen15 at checkout. That is www.ankhway.com.